Brothers and sisters, I'm Jesse with Living Tree Community Foods, and I'm here to tell you about CRISPR, a breakthrough in genetic engineering. It encompasses plants, animals, and even people. CRISPR is a very precise way of tinkering with genes. Gene editing was once imprecise and expensive. Now scientists can go into your DNA and essentially cut and paste it at specified places. CRISPR is a cheap, simple, and efficient method of genetic modification. Already, it's being used in the food industry. Heretofore, genetically modified foods had genes from other species inserted, an example being the Franken salmon, in which the genes of an Arctic eel were inserted in a salmon to produce a creature that would mature in 1 year instead of 3, and was much larger, more massive than the ordinary salmon. But CRISPR is well beyond that. Foods produced by genetic editing are not subject to regulation by the USDA or other regulatory agencies. CRISPR leads to hundreds of unexpected mutations. It's not merely a situation of copying and pasting. It leads to, when you make a genetic alteration, by inserting a foreign gene into a specified area of the genome, there is a potential for unintended effects. For the simple fact that when you alter 1 or 2 genes in a genome, the side effects ripple through the whole genome. As Dr. Mercola says, the reality is that scientists really don't know what they're doing in terms of the side effects produced by DNA tampering. The effects are very unpredictable. The intended change may have unintended consequences. Thus, long-term safety and toxicity studies are necessary. But who is conducting these studies and who is paying for them? The answer is no one. There is no regulation. Anything and anything goes. It's a free-for-all. Now, in regard to the more general claim that GMOs are perfectly safe, Dr. Mercola says, and I quote, "Who is actually checking? No one is assessing and keeping tabs of potential side effects. You can't even make that connection because GMOs are not labeled. Therefore, we have a lack of traceability." On the other hand, and this is so sad and tragic, health statistics clearly show Americans have been getting increasingly sicker over the past few decades. Chronic diseases are definitely increasing, and children are increasingly coming down with diseases that in the past did not arise till much later in life. No one can say for sure that there's a link to GMO consumption, since they're not labeled and therefore cannot be tracked, but you certainly cannot ignore the possibility of a link either. End of quote. Inevitably, CRISPR will be used on human beings. No doubt people will use it to enhance their appearance or intelligence. we can be certain that individuals will use it for the most narrow and crass of ends. In other words, the direction of the human race, the whole of human evolution, will be left to whim, caprice, and conceit. Moreover, gene editing is becoming increasingly accessible. After all, it's but a step up from computer coding. And any high school kid can do that nowadays. Do-it-yourself CRISPR kits can be purchased online. No license, no regulation, nothing. Think of it. Anyone, regardless of what's going on in their head, can tamper with the foundations of existence. Now, to put all this in perspective, let us go back 700 years and share the thoughts of Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, a profound student of Scripture. He pondered the words in Leviticus, "Thou shalt not let thy cattle gender with a diverse species." And also it says, "Thou shalt not sow thy field with two kinds of seeds," which in the opinion of the commentators constitutes a prohibition against grafting diverse sorts of trees, say grafting a persimmon onto a pear tree, for example, or a pear onto an apple tree, or trying to graft trees and vegetables and so forth. It seems clear that this is a prohibition against genetic modification. He goes on to say, "He who mixes two kinds of seeds denies and throws into disorder the work of creation." From this we can gain some concept of the enormity that genetic engineering is perpetrating upon humankind. Rabbi Nachman goes on to explain that all plants have their foundation in higher forces that regulate their growth. He quotes with approval, "There is not a single kind of herb that does not have a constellation in heaven which smites it and says to it, 'Grow.' This is just what people at the leading edge in regenerative agriculture are finally coming around to understand and appreciate." Rabbi Nachman concludes by saying, "All plants have their foundations in higher forces, and it is from there that," quote, "the Eternal commanded them the blessing, even life forever." This is from Psalms 133.3. Thank you so very much indeed. a privilege speaking with you and sharing ideas. I would so much appreciate your comments and suggestions. Let us go forward, brothers and sisters.